Good morning, and welcome to Auntie Kaya's Bloody Fairy Tales. Now, some people were saying, Auntie Kaya, that goose girl, it wasn't scary, it wasn't bloody enough. And I say to you, have you been good? Have you done your chores? Have you listened to your parents? Okay, I'm going to give you a horrible, absolutely terrible, I, I feel dirty just speaking it, bloody, nasty fairy tale. And it is called Faithful John. Settle yourselves in. This is going to be a long one, I think. All right. So once upon a time, many years ago, there was a king, an older king who had only one son, a prince who he loved very much. Now, this king also had uh, a fantastic servant who had been with him through most of his life and his adventures. And the servant's name was John, but everyone called him Faithful John because he was so faithful and good. Now, the king realized that he was getting close to dying. And so he called Faithful John to his deathbed and he said, well, he gave a big key, a giant ring of all the keys, and he gave it to Faithful John. He said, when my boy is old enough, give him the keys to my castle, and he can open all the doors and see all the riches that are his. But please, my friend, promise me that you will not let him open the door that has the little key. And in that room is the portrait, the beautiful, stunning painting of the princess of the Golden Dwelling. And if anyone should see this princess, even just the painting, they will instantly be heartsick and will not rest until they find her. And I don't want that for my son, so do not let him open up that little door. And Faithful John took the keys. He said, of course, my liege, I will honor your word, and even if it means to my death. And he, so the king passes on, and the prince grows up, and Faithful John gives him the keys to the castle. And he explains, that there's so many beautiful rooms. So the king, or the prince who's now the king, might still call him the prince though, starts opening up all of the rooms. And some of the rooms are full of musical instruments, and some of them are full of paintings, and some of them are full of beautiful plants. And he has such a great time exploring the castle, and there's so much. But eventually he's gone through all the rooms and he's explored them all of them except for this room in one of the corridors that's locked. And the prince notices that he has this little key for it. But when he goes to open it, Faithful John stops him at the door and he says, "Sir, I promised your father that I would try to stop you. I don't think that you should open this door. Please do not do this." And the prince says, "Hey, who's the servant here? I'm telling you, open the door and get out of my way, bud." So, Faithful John has no recourse, so he opens the door, and then he kind of tries to stand like this when the prince walks in. So he's like trying to block the prince's view of the portrait, but then the prince pushes him out of the way, and once he sees the portrait of the most beautiful princess in the whole world, the princess of the Golden Dwelling, the prince becomes sick with fear, yikes, with love, and he can't eat, he can't sleep, he must see her. He becomes tormented with his love, and he bugs Faithful John all the time, like, who is this princess? Who is she? I must know her. And Faithful John's like, oh, well, that's the princess of the Golden Dwelling, She likes gold, I hear, and I don't know that much else about her. So the prince is like, get me the goldsmiths. Let's make all the gold. Let's make fancy, awesome gold stuff. Let's fill this boat with gold, and we're going to sail across, and, I'm going to make this happen, okay? Faithful John is like, yes, if that's what you want, of course, we'll do it. So they have all these fantastic gold creatures and objects and beautiful jewelry made, and they fill the ship with all of it, and then they sail across. They sail until they get to the kingdom that is where the princess of the Golden Dwelling lives. And at that point, the prince stays on the boat, and Faithful John goes, and he takes a few small gold pieces with him. And he meets 3 beautiful ladies who are at a well, and he shows them the gold. And they say, oh, our princess would be very interested in that. Our princess loves all sorts of fantastically made gold things. She'll buy them from you. And he says, yes, well, my master has so much more on this boat. If she really wants to come shopping, she should just come on the ship, and we'll show her. So the maids go, and they tell the princess, and they bring the princess back onto the boat. And the prince is disguised as a merchant, and he takes her. And there's so many rooms in this boat, the below stairs, that she doesn't notice that he's set the boat to sail, and hours pass, and they're sailing back towards his home. And then the princess comes up, and she's like, how dare you, I'm a princess. I will have you beheaded for your treason. And then he whips off his merchant disguise. He says, hey, I am also a prince, and I love you, and I want to marry you, please. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay, sure, that sounds kind of fun, and you're a prince, so yeah, let's do it. So they're very excited. They're going to get married. Now, Faithful John is very happy for his master. But Faithful John can actually understand animals when they talk. And he's spending some quiet time on the edge of the ship, just around twilight, and 3 ravens, 3 large black ravens, fly out of the sky, and they land, and they perch on the ship. They're like, ah, 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 and they're talking to each other, and they're laughing. And Faithful John listens, and he can understand them speaking. And one of the ravens says, there's the prince and his new wife-to-be. How lucky they think they are. But if they only knew that when the prince arrives in the boat with his new wife, a white, beautiful horse will come, and he will want to ride it. But if he rides it, he will have his back broken and torn until he's dead. Ha, 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 ha. If he only knew. But no one may speak of it, and if they do speak, their legs will turn to stone from their feet all the way to their hips. And Faithful John is listening to this. And then the second raven says, that's not all. Even if someone helps the prince and does not let him ride the horse, something still awaits. The ring. If the princess has the ring put on her fingers, she will burst into flames and be consumed by fire. And none may speak of what they know. And if they do speak, their body shall turn to stone from their waist all the way to their shoulders. And Faithful John is still listening. He's like, ooh. And then the third raven spoke. And he said, those fools! Even if someone should somehow save the prince from the horse and the fire ring, when the prince and the princess have their first dance together, the princess will fall down and be as if dead. And the only thing that will save her is if someone is able to draw 3 drops of blood from her chest, and that will restore her to life. But if someone speaks of this, they will turn to stone from their shoulders to the top of their head, and remain so for all eternity. And the ravens all fly away. And Faithful John is left listening to this, or thinking about it. What does he do? Well, so the boat arrives on the shore. Sure enough, this beautiful white horse comes out. And the prince is like, wow, that's a beautiful horse. I'm going to ride that to my wedding. And he goes to get on the horse. And Faithful John is like, don't do it. Pushes the prince out of the way, takes a gun, shoots the horse. Blood everywhere. And the prince is like, what? What did you do? And Faithful John is like, I can't tell you why. I can't tell you why. You have to trust me, okay? It was not a good thing. And a lot of the other servants were like, he should probably be going to jail for this. This is not a good thing to do. But the prince was like, no, this is Faithful John. Faithful John is a great servant, and I will hear no bad talk about him. If he says he can't speak of it, I totally honor that. So, the prince and the princess get married. And they're about to be given each other the rings. And when the prince goes to put the wedding ring on the princess's hand, Faithful John jumps and he's like, no, stop! He takes the ring and he throws it into the fire and somehow manages to burn it. And everyone's like, okay, all right, this guy, he's not a good servant anymore. He's gone crazy. Your Majesty, really, you should have him put to death for such disobedience in your own wedding. Like, this is terrible. Everyone's saying that. Everyone's like, this is wrong. Get him, put him in jail, have him hung or executed. But the king is like, the prince is like, this is Faithful John. Okay, Faithful John, why did you do this? And Faithful John is like, I'm sorry, I cannot say. And the prince is like, yeah, well, everybody else, zip it. Faithful John is my loyal servant, and I stand by him all the time. Okay. So, the prince and the princess begin their dance. They're going to be dancing, their wedding dance. But Faithful John remembers what will happen if he doesn't stop. So it's too late. The princess has fallen down as if dead, right? And Faithful John is like, get back, everybody! Get down on the princess, takes a knife, gives a little slit on her bosom, and takes 3 drops of blood, and then she's restored to life. Oh, phew. But this time, everybody is really, really angry, right? And the prince is angry too, because Faithful John laid his hands on the wife, and he doesn't like that. He says, Faithful John, please tell me why you did what you did. And Faithful John is like, I'm sorry, my master, I cannot tell you. I cannot speak of this. And at this point, the king is like, well, the prince is like, at this point, he listens to all those other people. He's like, no, I'm going to have you put to death. Faithful John, I'm sorry, tomorrow morning at dawn, we'll have you executed. They're going to hang him. All right, so tomorrow, the next morning at dawn, everyone gathers. There's a big crowd because it's an execution, It's a big deal back in the day. And they bring Faithful John up. Everyone's pretty sad, but kind of excited at the same time. And they put the noose around his neck. And then they say, do you have any last words before you die? And Faithful John says, yes, I do, as a matter of fact. The reason that I did this and that and the other thing is because I heard these ravens on the ship, and I tried to stop. And he starts to tell the story of what the ravens had said and how he tried to stop the prince and the princess from getting hurt. And of course, as he begins to tell this story, his body begins to turn to stone from his feet all the way to his hips, and then all the way up his chest and up his shoulder and then up his neck, and at last he is a statue and dead. And everyone was crying. They're like, oh my God, Faithful John, why? No, he was good until the end. He was good. Why didn't we believe him? Oh, what fools we were. What terrible, terrible, faithless fools. And the king was super upset. Very, very, he was inconsolable. He brought the statue of Faithful John into their bedroom so that he could weep over the statue every day, every morning. And the princess had 2 beautiful children, a boy and a girl. And they also knew about Faithful John because every day the king was there crying over the statue. It was very sad, right? So one day the queen was out at church, and the king was crying, wetting the statue with his tears, and the statue spoke to him. And the statue said, there is one way to bring me back to life, but it's very difficult. And the king said, anything, please tell me what I can do. And the statue said, if you murder your children and wipe their blood on my base, that will bring me back to life. And the king is like, oh, geez. Well, Faithful John is a really good servant. I mean, it's kind of the least I can do, So he goes, he murders his kids, and he takes their blood, and he puts them on the base of the statue. And the statue comes back to life. He's like, Faithful John, yeah! And then Faithful John says, I was testing to see how good and true you were, and I have this special water that can bring your children back to life too. So they take the special water and they rub it on the kids, and the kids come back to life too. Yeah! And then it's almost time for the queen to come home, the princess to come home from church. So the king says, I have an idea. Everybody go and hide in the closet. All right? And we'll surprise your mom when she comes home. So she comes home and she's like, how are you, dear? And he says, well, honey, I was just crying by the statue of good, faithful John. He was just so great. And she's like, yes, I know. He was really the best. I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? And he says, well, actually, what's interesting is that the statue spoke to me. And the statue said that if we killed our kids and put the blood on the base, that would make Faithful John come back to life. And the the princess is like, really? Wow. Well, I think that's the least we can do, because Faithful John was a really great servant. And, good servants are hard to come by. And we can always have more kids. So, and then he says, guess what? I did it already. Ah! And look at Faithful John's back to life, and the kids are back to life too. Yes. And they all come into the closet and give her a big hug, and she's delighted. And they all live happily ever after, not even a little bit traumatized. And that is the end of the most bloody and violent and also naughty Faithful John. I do have actually worse ones. I might take a break and tell some nice ones, but, eventually we'll get to the cobbler and the tailor. Ooh, tune in. Listen to your parents and don't drive them crazy.